Thank you for joining us this evening for the public security briefing organized by the Jewish Security Alliance, a partnership between Jewish Federation Los Angeles, ADL Los Angeles, and Community Security Service. We will begin the program momentarily. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We are so grateful that you came to listen in and hear from our leaders in our community. I'm Joanna Mendelson, and it is a pleasure to have you this evening, and the Senior Vice President of Community Engagement for Jewish Federation. I'd now like to open the floor to Rabbi Noah Farkas, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. Rabbi Noah.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you to the elected officials that have joined us tonight. We'll be going through who they are and why they're so important to us as we go, but just as general welcome to everyone. And welcome to all of you. This has been a pretty tough few days from the coordinated assault, I'll call it, on the Jewish community on Sunday. The response by us and others and our partners over the last several days. Look, this moment's very fragile. This is a moment that we have been leading, almost slouching towards for a couple of years now. As we've said before many times, hate speech, hate incidences, they lead to hate crimes. All of us, unfortunately, have been experiencing this for such a long time. And it's really important that we come together in this moment and understand our security, understand how we need to be united as a Jewish community, and to really understand how we need to collaborate and coordinate and to try our best to stay calm, stay focused, and stay strategic. I have just so much gratitude for the elected officials who, over the last couple of days, have really stepped up with clarion calls about the true anti-Semitism that we're seeing in our community, and have taken real action, especially in the last few days, to support the Jewish community. I want to thank the mayor for her action, and I want to be very clear that the mayor worked very hard on Sunday with us, with LAPD, and with others to try to respond to this violence as quickly as possible. I want to put any rumor to bed that there was any contravening of orders or holding back from the community. The truth is, everyone tried to mobilize as quickly as possible from the governmental perspective, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank the other elected officials who are with us, who have made clear calls for change and are willing to be held accountable to that change. We're going to move into what we're going to do this evening is we have several of our elected officials who are here. I'm going to introduce them one at a time and thank them for being here. And then we're going to open up to our panel discussion from the Jewish Security Alliance, including our Community Security Initiative, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Community Security Services. And we're going to have a conversation. And the goal of tonight is not only just to hear from our electeds and get their support, but for each and every one of you to understand how you can stay safe, both as an individual and as an institution in this very fraught environment. So please join me in welcoming our first guest elected official, our prestigious mayor, the Honorable Mayor Karen Bass.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Farkas. Thank you for your leadership, and I also especially appreciate your comments dispelling any rumors out there. Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank the Federation's partners organizations as well, the ADL and the Community Security Service. Let me repeat several things that I said on Monday, because I know that there are hundreds and hundreds of people on this call. Sunday's violence in the Pico Robinson neighborhood was abhorrent. The blocking of access to a place of worship is unacceptable, and the attacks on members of the press were unacceptable as well. What happened that day deserved and required an urgent response. Immediately during and after the incident, I requested LAPD increase patrols in the neighborhood and around houses of worship throughout the city. And I want to be clear, very clear. Los Angeles will not be a harbor for anti-Semitism and violence. Those responsible for either will be found, prosecuted, and held accountable. Less than 24 hours after the incident, I joined law enforcement, faith, and community leaders at the Museum of Tolerance, where we work to determine the best solutions to ensure safety and to stand together to condemn violence and anti-Semitism. Tomorrow, we will be working to convene leaders of houses of worship to discuss how to protect sacred spaces, sharing ideas, practices, and strategies to keep congregants safe. LAPD will enhance their partnership with the Jewish public safety organizations to continually review evolving tactics and threats to the community, and to ensure that we are not just responding, but that we're taking proactive action to prevent these incidences from taking place to begin with. We're also going to work with our state representatives, and I know that our great Assembly member, Jessie Gabriel, is here, and he is going to work, and I'm sure he's going to explain that, to bring resources here to LA to protect houses of worship. Councilwoman Yaroslavsky introduced an urgent motion, and I believe she is on the line, to secure funding, and we're looking at ways to bring money to organizations immediately in case there is a delay with state funds. There were a number of ideas raised by community members in that meeting, including examining the use of masks at protests. I committed to following up with our city attorney about this in the likelihood that we might be able to do an ordinance. At this point, we don't think that this will withstand judicial scrutiny, but we are still looking into it, and we're examining the idea of having buffer zones around houses of worship. As mayor, I am very clear that my number one job is to keep Angelino safe, community members, the press, all of us. And I want to assure you that we will continue our efforts so that you not only feel safe, but actually are safe, especially in houses of worship. I especially want to thank Councilwoman Yaroslavsky for her work and leadership on this issue. And I want to thank everyone for being here today as we continue to call out hate and work on prevention measures that ensure events like Sunday will never happen again. I'm sorry that I won't be able to be with you for the panel, but I appreciate you, Rabbi Farkas, for giving me these few minutes to address the people on the call. And now it's my privilege to introduce a champion of LA's Jewish community, the chair of the State Legislative Jewish Caucus, the chair of the Assembly Budget Committee, and my friend, Assembly Member Jessie Gabriel.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And it is so good to be with you and so good to be with Rabbi Farkas and all of our dear friends at the Federation. And first, let me say, Madam Mayor, thank you for your incredible friendship and partnership in protecting our Jewish community. I have seen so many examples, both publicly and behind the scenes, how you have stood unequivocally with our community and been vocal about that. And I also want to put to bed any rumors that are going out there. And I'm not sure how they started or where they come from, but I want folks to know it is absolutely not true that the LAPD was told to stand down. I had the opportunity to talk to the mayor, to talk to Councilwoman Yaroslavsky, and everybody should know we are really fortunate to have such good friends in city government, people who genuinely care about our community, who genuinely care about the safety of our community. And I want to thank you too for all of the work that you have done to support us in these very difficult moments. And these are moments that I take very personally as a father of 3 young kids, as an active member of Valley Beth Shalom Synagogue in Encino, where I walk my 4-year-old through a metal detector to preschool every Friday when I'm home in Los Angeles. I understand, and we understand, what a complicated and difficult time this is for our community. And that's why we're so grateful for the leadership of Rabbi Farkas, so grateful for the leadership of Jeff Abrams, the folks at CSI who are doing this work to protect us. And I also am going to have to go. We're about to vote on the state budget up here in Sacramento, but I did want to share that one of the things that I talked about with the mayor and the councilwoman over the course of this past couple of days is the fact that our state budget agreement, which we're about to pass, includes a record $160 million for the nonprofit security grant program. This has been a major priority for the Jewish Caucus. We are grateful for the support of so many community organizations. And to give you a sense of how significant that is, a few years ago, before I was in elected office, when I was a board member at the LA Federation, and we came up with the idea of asking the state to invest resources, the first time we came up to Sacramento, we secured $500,000. And we thought that that was an accomplishment. And the fact that we now have a 2-year, first ever multi-year commitment of $80 million a year for 2 years, this is incredible funding that has gone to dozens of shuls and synagogues and Jewish day schools and Jewish community centers across the state. Much of it has come to the Valley and to the city of Los Angeles. And I know that it does an incredible work also in supporting the community, Jewish community security organization. So this is a major, major commitment from the state of California to step up and protect our community. And I, at the suggestion of the mayor and the councilwoman, have initiated conversations with the governor about expediting some of that funding to make sure that we can get it out as quickly as possible. I had the opportunity to talk to the governor today in person. He is working with his Office of Emergency Services to make sure that we would do everything possible to get those security resources out. So we're very, very lucky. Again, Madam Mayor, as a chair of the Jewish caucus, as a parent of kids who I care deeply about, as an active member of the Jewish community, I'm so grateful that you have stood with our community in word and deed. I'm really grateful for the leadership of Councilwoman Yaroslavsky, and really thankful for these community organizations. And I want you to know that the Jewish caucus in the legislature, for all of the issues we are working on, Holocaust education, anti-Semitism, community security, is at the very top of our list. And we will continue to prioritize this issue, and we will continue to work with our good friends at the local level to do that. And so I believe at this time it's my opportunity to hand it over to someone who's been a wonderful, wonderful representative of our community, someone I have known for a long time who cares a lot about the Jewish community, and that's Councilwoman Katy Yaroslavsky.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Gabriel, for your really incredible leadership, your friendship, and most importantly, your action on behalf of our community, not just in the last couple of days, but for as long as I've known you. Thank you to Rabbi Farkas, the Jewish Federation ADL, everyone joining us this evening. I especially want to thank Mayor Bass for her leadership at this really crucial moment and for bringing this community together. My name is Katy Yaroslavsky. I'm the councilwoman for the 5th District. Councilmember Blumenfield had planned on joining me this evening, but he's chairing the council's budget committee, and without him there, we would not have a quorum. So I'm going to be providing a little bit of an update on what we've been up to the last 3 days. I want to also acknowledge him for his leadership and partnership, not just over the last few days, but over the past year and a half, as we've taken on the alarming rise of anti-Semitism in Los Angeles and beyond. Because while the unacceptable violence this past weekend in Pico Robertson is what led to this meeting, the truth is that the disgusting anti-Semitic violence we saw was not an isolated incident. It's touched every corner of our city, and it really warrants a city-wide response, which is what we're addressing with the motion that Councilmember Blumenfield and I introduced this morning. We co-presented a motion at the council meeting that's going to deliver a combined $1 million to the Jewish Federation, Magen Am, and the Jewish Community Federation for neighborhood security initiatives. And we expect council to vote on this next Tuesday, and funds should be available within a couple of weeks. And if you know the city bureaucracy, you know that that's faster than we usually move. And it really underscores how much we know that this is a priority for our community. And what we're doing with this motion is really just expediting and expanding the state funding that Assemblymember Gabriel just spoke about, so that funds for enhanced neighborhood public safety can be dispersed as soon as possible. So we're not waiting until the fall for the grant cycles to open, but that we're getting money out the door to start hardening vulnerable targets and increasing public safety on our streets. Councilmember Blumenfield, Mayor Bass, and I, and the rest of my colleagues are committed to doing what we can to keep our communities safe. We all deserve to feel and actually be safe in our communities. It's absolutely essential that we get there as quickly as possible. And so thank you for the opportunity to give an update on what we're doing on the city side. And I'll pass it over to Rabbi Farkas.
Well, thank you, Katy. Very much appreciate your leadership, and we can't thank you enough for expediting $1 million into the Jewish community in the next couple of weeks if the vote goes well. So I can't thank you enough for the leadership over the last couple of days, and of course to Assemblymember Gabriel, the same to you for all of your hard work and longtime partnership with us at the Federation. It's my pleasure now to call on a dear friend of the Jewish community, a member of this Jewish community who represents us in Congress, Congressman Brad Sherman.
Rabbi, thank you very much. I'm Brad Sherman from America's best named city, Sherman Oaks, and I represent the West and South San Fernando Valley and now parts of the West Side. I want to join in thanking Mayor Bass for the protection provided by the LAPD. I'm here in Washington, D.C., which puts me a long way from the incidences that you're discussing. We are focused on first in the security of Israel, where we have provided $14 billion of additional aid on top of the usual about $4 billion of aid to Israel. I'm focused on campuses, as I have been for more than 20 years. We were successful in getting the U.S. Department of Education to recognize that Title VI, which deals with discrimination on campuses involving race and national origin, applies to Jews. We are more than just a religion. Now we have to get, and we've almost got, the U.S. Department of Education to accept the definition of anti-Semitism that says that trying to abolish Israel is indeed anti-Semitic. Just in the last few months, I've been had long conversations today with the president of Rutgers, of course, the presidents of UCLA, USC, Harvard, Yale, and many others to try to get them to protect their students. As to Ventura County, early in this process, we saw Paul Kessler killed. He is one of the very few Americans to die on American soil since October 7th. His killer has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, and ought to be enhanced as a hate crime. We have not been able to persuade the DA in Ventura County to charge as a hate crime. There's more to be done there. But Paul's death in Thousand Oaks was a tragedy. At the federal level, we provide billions of dollars of security grants all across the country and through every religious group. So that is spread rather thin. I'm pleased to announce that I was able to get the Republicans to put in their bill some $2.2 million just for my district. That is $1.2 million for the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles Community Security Initiative, and $1 million for the Los Angeles County Jewish Community Safety Plan. Now, of course, that's just in the House bill. It will be many months before this money goes through the Senate, and predicting what's going to happen in Washington is very difficult. We are gathered here together chiefly because groups of thugs came to Sher Sedek in the valley, and then at Astora, came to synagogues, not to the Israeli consulate, not to the federal building, but to synagogues to scream and disrupt. And this is more proof that anti-Zionism is indeed anti-Semitism. And those who try to mask their anti-Semitism by saying they just disagree with Israel, this is certainly not the case. So I look forward to working with everyone here, and there's a lot to be done. I'm Brad Sherman. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Sherman. Very much appreciate your leadership for all these years representing the Jewish community and on the Foreign Relations Committee, now protecting not only Jews here, but in Israel. So thank you so much for your leadership. It's my pleasure now to introduce Commander Steve Lurie, who is the Jewish liaison of the LAPD, a good friend, a member of our Jewish Security Alliance that we are in close contact with. We're going to give you a lot of time here, Steve, to really walk us through some safety tips from your perspective, from intelligence, from where you're seeing. And so let's turn it over to you now, Commander.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for being here, especially just a host of friends and supporters of both the Jewish community and the LAPD among these elected officials, many of whom I talk to personally all the time about protecting our community. I want to speak briefly about these partnerships and what they mean to the police department, then my role as liaison to this community. And then finally, I'll give a synopsis to the degree that we have one about what we think happened on Sunday. And finally, what our steps moving forward will be in and around the Jewish community, many of which have already begun. And I've started to receive some positive feedback about those. So many of the 1,000 or so people on here are people that I know. If you don't know me, I'm a commander in our West Bureau. which is the western sort of 25% of the city. And I also serve as the chief of police's liaison to the Jewish community. I've been in and around the West Side most of my life. I'm a UCLA Bruin and a South Bay kid, and have lived in most of the West Side of Los Angeles on and off. So this is also my extended home. We enjoy wonderful partnerships with the ADL, with Maganam, with CSS, with the Federation. And one of my first steps about 8 to 10 months ago when I took over this job was to make sure that there were open lines of communication, which is the first step to any secure space between all of those organizations and me. I have weekly phone conversations with Rabbi Yossi from Maganam, with many of the panelists on this call, including Alex and Jeffrey. We talk about safety in a general sense, and we talk about the intelligence that's out there facing the Jewish community. Obviously, after October 7th, this sphere of information and intelligence changed dramatically, immediately, and has remained a completely new environment. Hate incidents and hate crimes against the Jewish community in Los Angeles are up in the triple digits. That has happened since October 7th, and we don't see a slowing of that trajectory. That is the tragic truth. What we saw in the Valley on Thursday was a smaller, less violent event than what happened on Sunday, although we believe and now can probably confirm that it was the same group or groups that organized that event in the Valley. And immediately after that event concluded, I met with the commanding officer who was in charge of the response there to discuss lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong, etc. We did know that Sunday's event was planned. We did know that people were coming to target that synagogue. Our estimates of how many and the level of vitriol that we predicted were not correct. In the intelligence world, sometimes that unfortunately happens. We operate on our best estimate of what to expect. Having said that, we did deploy over a dozen police officers in anticipation of that event, with the expectation that it would be similar, to the Thursday event in the Valley. Those assets were quickly overwhelmed, not only by the number of people who responded to Pico Boulevard, but by the level of anger, vitriol, and violence that they displayed. We immediately called for more officers, and in the end, somewhere between 60 and 75 LAPD officers were at that scene within about 45 to 55 minutes. That is frustrating and is a long time, but does represent a fairly rapid response when we have to grab police officers from all over the city. Once those officers were there, we were more effective at separating these groups and trying to keep the best that we could these criminals away from the entrance to the synagogue. Something about overall philosophy at these types of events. And I'm familiar with and share the frustration of so many community members in the aftermath of such things, that the LAPD didn't act quickly or didn't act aggressively enough. As the event is unfolding, the incident commander, which is generally a lieutenant or a captain or myself, has sort of two overarching goals being emphasized to them. One is that our organization, of course, is a guardian of the First Amendment. However unpleasant, we never want to stop and will not stop lawful speech. However, the First Amendment's protection of speech is not absolute. When that speech incites violence, when that speech or expression prevents people from accessing their house of worship, as it did on Sunday, that is unacceptable, unlawful, and can't be tolerated. Our intent is to arrest people when we possibly can, if we feel we can do it safely, because we believe that making arrests of law violators at these events sends a deterrent message, not only that day, but into future events. I understand the frustration in the community that there were not many arrests made on Sunday. After each of these events, and this process has already begun, we conduct a formal review of our performance in the hopes of improving should there be a subsequent event. In this arena, unfortunately, everybody on this call knows this will not be the last such event, and we will be at another one probably sooner than later. That will become a formal written report, which will come to me and to Chief Choi to discuss future steps, address any mistakes that we feel were made, and I'll be happy, while we don't share that written report, to reconnect with the community and discuss what lessons we've learned and what we plan to do differently moving forward after Sunday's event. So the incident commander is charged with this delicate balance between protecting the First Amendment and discouraging or stopping unlawful activity. Rabbi Farkas, when he introduced me, asked about tips and ideas to keep the community safe. This is a great question that really, really drives home the point of this being a partnership. There is no city in America, and Los Angeles is no different, where we can or should be relying on only the local police department to be protecting any community, including our Jewish community. This is why I'm blessed to have such a great partnership with Rabbi Yossi at Magen Am and with my friends at the Federation and CSS. Rabbi Yossi and Magen Am were involved in the pre-planning for this event. We knew that we would have and welcome their assistance in an auxiliary role at helping to protect this event. So the very first thing that everybody on this call can do is be in touch with their local non-government partners through various methods. There are websites, there are newsletters. You need to be aware and alert and up to speed on what's going on in the Jewish community. This has never been more important than after October 7th. The second thing you can do is the phrase that we have all heard for many years now, and it's quite simple and incredibly powerful. And that's if you see something, say something. Sunday's event was a shock to our community. And when there are more such events coming, or when there are single actors who plan to do evil to the Jewish community, someone, and probably not a police officer, is going to see, have a feeling, an idea, a gut reaction that something's not right before LAPD or any of our partners are physically there. That is the time to call us or call your local partner, and please, please share that information. We would so much rather get 100 tips or pieces of information that turn out to not be dangerous than to have missed one that turns into, God forbid, a tragedy. So please, it's really true. If you see something, say something. The Jewish Federation and my former boss, Chief Blake Chow, put together a wonderful program where hate incidents can now be reported online through the LAPD.online portal. We're starting to see usage of that portal go up. Anytime you introduce a new reporting methodology, it takes some time. But you can go online and report. You can report that anonymously. Anytime you call 911, you can be anonymous. If you want to call your local police station, you can do so anonymously. We want to emphasize the importance of us receiving information early and often, and we'll go through the work of sorting. So don't worry, oh, it's probably nothing. Don't think, I wonder if I should call LAPD about this. If you have asked that question, please call us. And then we'll work on figuring out what, if any, action needs to be taken. I know I have limited time, so I would like to close by discussing what steps were taken in the immediate aftermath of Sunday. As Mayor Bass said, she met with our senior management team immediately and discussed the importance of enhancing security in the Jewish community immediately, and that was accomplished. So you've already seen, and I've received some feedback from the community, an increased number of black and white police cars, especially focused around the Pico Robertson area. Our Metropolitan Mounted Platoon, our police officers on horses, were deployed there immediately and will be periodically over the next 5 to 7 days. And we are continuing this increased black and white police patrols there. We also have a large reserve corps of police officers in Los Angeles. These are volunteers who have other jobs, who volunteer on the weekends or evenings or occasionally to do police officer work. They are fully certified state police officers who volunteer for their local LAPD. We have put together a task force of reserve officers who will be on foot walking in and around the Jewish community, especially this Friday and Saturday. I would like to continue that for as long as I possibly can, and those deployment numbers are just coming in literally as we are on this call. So the community will see an increase in uniform and black and white police presence in the community. That is not all we are doing. We also work in the background doing intelligence and investigations And while we won't discuss the details of those, we have increased our level of alertness as to potential threats to the Jewish community. A good time to mention, we have no information or intelligence on any repeat events, similar events, or anything like that coming up in the near future. As soon as we do, we will begin that cycle again of planning for a deployment and deploying to the community. So in summary, thank you to everybody, the elected officials, the NGO partners, my personal friends who are on this panel for partnering with LAPD. I watched Sunday, unfortunately, from Boston in shock and as frustrated and concerned as the rest of the community. And we're getting ready to make sure that our response is robust and prepared for the next event, which unfortunately we know is inevitable. And Rabbi, I'll turn it back to you if there's anything else that you need me to cover, or we can wait for the panel discussion later tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Commander. And just before I let you go, first I want to say thank you for your honesty and for understanding the challenges that LAPD face. And it really is a systemic issue. I do want to return, just before I introduce the panel, since I have you, just one quick question. Returning to the arrest issue, again,
Yes.
there's just this perception that there's only been one arrest. There hasn't been very many arrests at all. Should we be expecting arrests from the perpetrators of this sort of invasion of the Jewish community?
Yeah. Expecting is an interesting word, right? But yes, our goal is always to arrest law violators when we're witnessing crimes happening. Essentially, the balance comes down to two things. It comes down to personnel numbers. We know from years of experiential learning here and from nationwide research that as soon as we insert uniformed police officers into a crowd like Sundays to make arrests, the police become the common enemy. So we're not going to do that if we don't think it's safe for the police officers. We've seen this back in the Democratic National Convention days when I was a young police officer. We saw it in 2020. We saw it at UCLA. So we do have to be cautious about sort of becoming the target of the group. So generally, what an incident commander will do is wait for more resources or sufficient resources there to make arrests. But as I said, every event is a learning experience. We are now combing through video of Sunday to evaluate and learn from the very real possibility that perhaps there were some missed opportunities there to take some people into custody. So yes, that is our goal when we're witnessing crimes. The nuance becomes the second point that I made, which is that we are also passionate guardians of the First Amendment. So you can't be arrested for being loud and boisterous and scary and annoying, right? It's when crimes begin to occur. And that happens in real time very quickly. And we're asking people to make sort of split-second decisions there. But yes, the preference is as soon as criminal activity occurs, to start making arrests.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you for allowing me the follow-up question. And I know you're going to stay on the line for the end of the discussion, but
Yes.
thank you for the briefing. We're going to turn it over to our panel now, and just one word on housekeeping. Please use the Q&A function. What we're going to do is put the questions in. Our staff's going to bundle them so that we only have a limited amount of time, so we're going to try to ask as many of these questions as we can, combine ones that are very similar. So I just encourage you to ask questions of our panelists and then even of our law enforcement. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful panel. First is the Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League and member of our Jewish Security Alliance and a dear friend of mine and of the Federation, Jeffrey Abrams. It's great to see you. Second is the Regional Director for the Community Security Services, an organization that trains lay people, volunteers, to be able to protect themselves. Please welcome my dear friend, no relation, but Aubrey Farkas. Great to have you here, Aubrey. And finally, our staff member, Senior Vice President in charge of the Community Security Initiative, its Director, Alex Zastev. Alex, thank you for being here and being part of the panel. This first question is really for all of you. How do each of you secure the Jewish community in general? Like, what do you do to actually try to ensure security? And how does the JSA work to work together to collaborate? And since I introduced you first, Jeff, I'll let you answer the question first.
Thank you so much, Noah, and really thank you for everyone who joined us, including our elected officials and Commander Lori. You saw firsthand, folks, tonight, the kind of relationships, the closeness, the partnership, as we are all striving to continue to do better for our community to help protect you. ADL is a national organization that's been here around since 1913. One of our centers of excellence is our Center on Extremism. And what we do in that center, and we have dozens of analysts all over the country, we track extremism, hatred, whether from the right or, as we're seeing, particularly since October 7th, from the left when it comes to anti-Zionistic behavior like we've seen. And we monitor the web, and we take that intelligence and we monitor these groups. And then what we do is we work with law enforcement. And so, for example, we do provide intelligence about these kind of groups, including the ones that we saw over the weekend. And we assist law enforcement. We provide workshops and trainings. For example, we have an innovative program here in Los Angeles where we train LAPD officers in the West Side and the Valley on the Jewish American experience so that they understand better as they're helping to protect us, who we are. We have on a quarterly basis, and it will meet tomorrow, a law enforcement advisory committee, local, state, federal law enforcement, all coming together to share best practices, to share intelligence like we will do tomorrow under the auspices of the ADL, or what we call our Law Enforcement Advisory Committee. And finally, just as an additional way in which we do help to secure the safety here in Southern California, is we have an award for law enforcement called the Sherwood Prize, where for over almost 30 years, we've honored law enforcement who go above and beyond in combating hate. Just this past May 30th, we honored the team that was responsible for the arrest of the person who, on consecutive mornings last February, shot 2 Orthodox men as they left the synagogue. And so what we've done together in partnership, Noah, as you know, with the Jewish Security Alliance, as we've come together with our expertise, and as Alex will share about CSI and Aubrey about CSS, and together we are working as a team, uniquely perhaps in the Jewish community, and never before seen in Los Angeles like we are doing today, in partnership, so that nothing seeps through. And we also include our local ADL and federations throughout Southern California, because hate doesn't stop at any one border. So these are some of the things ADL is involved with, but only in partnership, because that's where we must be right now. So thank you for the opportunity to share now.
Pleasure, Jeffrey, and glad you're here. Aubrey, can you speak a little bit about CSS and what it does and how you participate in the JSA?
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting this panel and for all the elected officials and law enforcement and participants that are joining us this evening. So CSS, Community Security Service, trains Jews across the country to take ownership over their own security. We do that through a number of programs, 2 of which I'll describe now. The first is called CSS Synagogue. It's our flagship program. It's designed, as you guessed, for synagogues, where we teach congregants advanced security skills so they can volunteer at their own synagogues. They're trained in situational awareness, deterrence, and detection of suspicious behaviors, as well as advanced security response, emergency response measures. Next, I'm very happy to announce in Los Angeles, we're launching a program called Rome. This program is designed for young professionals who may or may not be affiliated with a Jewish institution who are interested in protecting Jewish community events. So we're teaming up with synagogues and Jewish communal groups who would like an extra set of eyes and ears at their events. And we do this in partnership with our friends at the Jewish Federation, ADL, and of course, other Jewish security partners. And, in trainings, we talk about building protective circles around our institutions. And working together, sharing intelligence, sharing resources, sharing trainings is really the perfect metaphor for the protective circles. Working together creates layers of protection against those who want to do harm against us.
Thank you for that, and really appreciate your work. Alex, just turning to you, speak a little bit about the intelligence analysis that we do at Federation and the trainings.
Of course. Thank you, Rabbi Farkas, and of course, the elected officials, Commander Larry, and the entire Jewish community in this webinar. I really always stress the fact that it is about the community. I mean, through the Jewish Federation, CSI offers a robust program to address the security needs of nearly 600 nonprofit Jewish sites in the greater Los Angeles area and some surrounding regions as well. And so for all these Jewish sites, we conduct site vulnerability assessments to address the security gaps, which is all encompassing essentially by starting from the perimeter and working our way into the center of the site. We also provide various situational awareness trainings and active shooter, active threat trainings. Unfortunately, that is the reality we have in the US when it comes to those incidents. And lastly, CSI runs an analysis center, which conducts reactive and proactive information analysis for threats targeting the Jewish community. So beyond everything CSI performs, we also coordinate, as Jeff and Aubrey were mentioning, with the Jewish Security Alliance members, which is the CSI team, the ADL team, and of course CSS, in order to utilize the power of all organizations for the benefit of the community. Essentially, this summarizes the role CSI plays in keeping the LA community safe. But I want to stress that we had a record amount of client-reported incidents last year, and we are on pace to break that record by August. But it's important to understand that the more data we receive, the more we're able to help protect the community, to inform the community by identifying these threats, but also to inform law enforcement so they can take appropriate measures. Because at the end of the day, no one organization can do it alone. No law enforcement agency can do it alone either. So it's important to have and harness the power of the community to help everyone stay safe.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm going to stick with you, Alex, just for a minute, and then we'll get back to Jeff and Aubrey. Can you speak a little bit? Does CSI only work with synagogues? Does it work with schools, other Jewish institutions? What's the purview when you say that larger group?
Right. So when I talk about a Jewish client site, it is any nonprofit Jewish site, essentially a place of mass gathering for the Jewish community. So it is a synagogue, a shul, an ECC, a JCC, a day school, Hebrew school, a community center, Jewish community center, anything in between, essentially a nonprofit site. And so everything that we do is free of charge. So we don't provide an invoice at the end of the day or a receipt saying you have to pay this and this. It is free of charge. And we've been around since 2012, and we have grown throughout the years. We've been fortunate enough to have donors who appreciate the program and donors who are part of the community that allow us to further embolden and essentially empower the Jewish community to help keep them safe.
I really appreciate that. Now, this one's for you, and then let's bring Aubrey on too. We're in such a heavy frictional moment. And one of the questions is, how do we de-escalate some of the friction to try to stay calm, try to come up with solutions that don't just lead to more and more violence? So Alex, why don't you address that through your lens, and then we'll have Aubrey address it through hers.
Right. The key for me and for the entire program is to be cognizant that we live in a society where protests will happen. They either can occur spontaneously or are planned well in advance. You sometimes cannot escape that reality. We live in a country where people have a right to protest, but we also live in a country where there are laws. And if people cross that line where there is violence, that, there needs to be actions taken on that front. But sometimes things are dynamic when it comes to protests. And the key is to never engage with agitators or provocations if you end up in the vicinity or of a protest or unrest, right? One person may call it a protest and another community may call it an assault, and that's rightfully so. But you have to understand that if you are unfortunately caught in the middle of a protest, do your best to get out of that area as soon as possible and locate law enforcement or other security personnel, right? The key is to get into a safe place. And one thing I want to stress, it's important to understand that you're not running away from these protests. You're not running away and being scared. What you're doing is being stronger by being above the fray, right? Stay from a safe distance and understand that at the end of the day, you're stronger by not engaging. You're stronger by not getting to their level, by just being above them. And of course, if you are in an emergency situation, just call 911. That's the most important thing. But the key is to never engage. That is the one way to lower the temperature. That's one way to show the community that you're above everyone else when it comes to those situations.
Yeah, thank you. Aubrey, from a CSS perspective, how do you see de-escalation of the friction, from the training that you do, et cetera?
Absolutely. De-escalation is key. It's paramount. Alex's tips were incredible. I'd also really recommend keeping your head on a swivel. Make sure that you're always cognizant and keep your wits about you so that you're never surprised by somebody who's trying to hurt you. Moreover, report, of course, that's part of de-escalation. And if use your effective communication tactics, use body language as if somebody's trying to agitate you, they might step forward towards you. They might get close to your face. Take a step back, be cognizant that your hands are always available to you. So if you do need to, if you are pushed, you're pushed to the ground, you have your hands available to protect yourself. But also it's important to know that if you're in a large crowd or you're going to a rally of some sort, keep flags or something close to your body. Maybe don't wave them while you're on the street. Keep an eye on exit routes. Always be aware of a safe place. Maybe it's a hotel lobby, maybe it's a cafe that you can just sort of duck into if things on the street do get rowdy. And park in a place, remember your route to and from your car, but also park your car backwards so that you can get out and out into a safe location more quickly.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Jeffrey, just turning to you, the commander said it was the Federation that helped build this portal. It really wasn't. It was the ADL who built the portal along with the Aguda. So maybe talk a little bit about how you address incident reporting, some of the challenges along the way, and what's the best way for someone to report an incident, even if they're not sure if it's a crime or not, just so that we're able to capture the data and maybe even respond to it.
So I appreciate and the clarification as well. And really, though, it was a direct reaction to what happened in February 2023. After the shooting, ADL, CSI, Aguda Israel, we had a forum with Chief Moore, the chief of LAPD at the time. And it was expressed, and it was in the Orthodox community. And there was an expression in the Orthodox community that one of the vulnerabilities that they had was an inability to report because often things happen on Shabbat or Jewish holidays. And the police chief Moore heard that, Assistant Chief Chow heard that, and they responded. And we created together in partnership this hate incident online portal, which means now anyone can report online without an officer, without waiting around, a hate incident. Now that's different than a crime. A hate incident, unfortunately, is perhaps an expression of the First Amendment right as they drive down the street on Shabbat and they scream something vile at somebody. That must be reported and recorded because that's the kind of evidence that gets built upon, for example, the February 2023 shooter in Pico Robertson. Hate incidents had been recorded before, reported to FBI, and that was part of the reason the hate crime was charged. There are many portals of entry for everyone in the community. You can do it through adl.org. You can report through CSI. You can report through 311, which is the city's system. You can report through county 311, something called LA versus hate. There's a state system called California versus hate. The FBI has a portal, 1-800-CALL-FBI, and trust me, they want to hear from us. I raise all of this because whatever door you go through, we are all talking together. Go through the door. Don't hesitate. Let us figure this out. But if we do not hear from you, we cannot help. Data drives policy. And even though it seems like, and I know it does at times, you're not arresting people, you're not prosecuting people. I feel like it's a crime, but it's not being treated like a crime by prosecutors. Still report it. Still report it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. That was really, really, really helpful. We're going to bring on any of the elected officials, law enforcement, once you guys come back on the line. And just as you're doing that, I want to just remind people, please use the Q&A function where you very much want to encourage dialogue. We're bundling questions as quickly as we can, and then be able to put it out to the elected officials, to law enforcement, the Jewish leaders that are here. Just going back to the electeds, for those who are available, there's some questions about what steps can we members of the public take to make sure that other leaders, other people in the community, other city council members, other elected officials in neighboring cities, what can we do to help ensure that they understand the Jewish story and that they understand how to protect the Jewish community right now? I don't know if the council member is available. She might have run back in, but maybe Commander Lori, you can Aver an answer to that question.
Rabbi, I apologize. Your audio was breaking badly here, but I think you're back now. If you can repeat it, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, no problem. And this actually is for the whole panel. What can we do more to ensure that those other leaders who have yet to step up and make a statement, or in adjacent cities at various levels of government, to understand the concerns of our Jewish community right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're asking a police manager to step into politics. So the partners who are on this call are the first resource, right? Like many people who are now operating in this new world, I have learned so much from everybody who is on your panel and from you, right? So the first thing is we have to have face-to-face, one-on-one contact with those elected leaders. And as we saw in this panel tonight, we're actually in a very good place right now in Los Angeles that way. So those who we haven't, I would recommend we reach out to, and I'm happy, and the LAPD is happy to be part of that conversation, because part of the story about that experience is needing, wanting, and partnering with the police to help protect this community. So that's, I think, the first thing. To the degree there's any resistance to that, and I don't know that there is. I know there are many great organizations out there, and I won't step into this pond, who are advocating from the political side to support elected leaders who support our Jewish community.
Okay. And for the NGO leaders, the non-governmental organizations that are here, what are your best suggestions on how we should be approaching this question about elected leaders, both inside the city of LA and our adjacent cities?
I'll be happy to jump in.
Go for it, Jeff.
It's relationships at every level, not just Congress. And not just LA City and LA and the county. We have something like 85, I think, is the number of cities within LA County. Those people who are elected are really important for us to know. And let me just tell you by a little example. In January 2023, when there was a shooting in Monterey Park of that Asian dance hall, and we reached out as an example, I can assure you, for example, Monterey City Council, because we went out and visited and made relationship, when that shooting happened in February 2023, they spoke up.
Mm-hmm.
We need everyone who's listening here, who has relationship with city council members, school board members, elected officials, to make sure they're in relationship, to share what you heard today, to share the people that have spoken and showed up as examples, which you hope they're going to emulate. And for the ones who do speak up, even if you think there's more work to be done, thank them. They deserve our thanks. While, and this last point, let me be perfectly clear for all of us. While we have relationship with our elected officials, we have relationship with our law enforcement partners, it doesn't mean that we are not critical or that we can't do more. And those are the conversations we have been having this week, privately and publicly. There's more to be done, but we have to do it in partnership, because these are our partners.
Yeah. Yeah, like when you say there's more to be done, I think that's 100% accurate. Just think about it this for a minute. Even the mayor said just a few minutes ago that she's not sure of the jurisprudential strength of a masking law or a demasking law. Well, from our perspective, let's test that. It's not something that we should be afraid of, and we should hold them accountable to try to push that to its very limit. And the same is with this idea that we've been working on with you, and have been very public about thinking about these safety zones. And I think in Colorado they call them bubble zones. But this idea that houses of worship, people should be able to have egress and access to houses of worship and shouldn't be blocked. They shouldn't be intimidated. A lot of our houses of worship, a lot of our synagogues have preschools. And why should these little kids have to go through a sort of a gauntlet of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish hate, right? So we're going to be working on that. And, I appreciate your partnership on that and trying to push our city council to adopt these as ordinances. And then lastly, when I'm thinking about holding our elected officials accountable, remember, this isn't personal. This is their job, is to be held accountable by all of us. We have to galvanize our alliances. we have to galvanize our alliances inside the Jewish community. The Jewish Security Alliance should grow, frankly, and while Magen Am isn't officially a member, it kind of is a de facto member, and Rabbi Yossi is a wonderful man that I've known for a while now, and I think that we have to support organizations like his. And there's a number of Israeli-based organizations. There's a few Persian-based organizations that we also have to be building our relationship with. And then outside the Jewish community, this is not just a call to action for all of us. It really should be a call to action for the entire city of Los Angeles to stand up against hate of all kinds. And to know that, as we know historically across many generations, that what happens to the Jewish community first ends up happening to everyone at some point. So this really is a call for allyship, I think, as well.
If I could just add a couple just quick points to that and for some clarity. So first, there is an existing masking statute in the state of California. It's a California Penal Code. So one of the things that it will be evaluated. So we have to look at existing laws. Are they defensible or do they need to be changed? We need to look at policies. So for example, and it's long been with my friend, Commander Lurie on the line, LAPD's policy regarding permitting, generally for the most part over the last decade or so, we ask, where's the permit? It really hasn't been required. Well, maybe it's a time to revisit that. And I say these as maybes. And then we also look at the buffer zone. So we all are going to work together. Also to the point of, and to add an additional point of education for you, the community. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you. And let us all say together, we will do a better job communicating with you to let you know what we are doing. But not only do we have the Jewish Security Alliance, but we have something called our Anti-Semitism Roundtable. And that includes a broader group. And so both of these things, both of these tools, both of these are working together in community as partners. And this is where all of you, we need more partners because we do not, and let us also be clear, speaking on behalf of my partners, we don't have all the answers. We need to work with everyone. And that's the view of how we approach it.
Right. And just to clarify, the Anti-Semitism Roundtable differs from the Jewish Security Alliance. The Security Alliance is focused specifically on physical security of the Jewish community. The Anti-Semitism Roundtable is looking at everything from our programs on campus to in corporate America, to various sectors, to fighting anti-Semitism, which isn't just about physical safety. We're talking about rooting out the causes of that hate to the first place. The last question I'm going to ask for the evening really is, Commander Lurie, there is just this real question about what happened on Sunday around blocking entrances to the synagogue, to Addis Torah. It feels like that should have been like the moment that we shut everything down. I'm not sure that it really happened that way, but can you just give us like crystal clear, give us some real clarity from the legal perspective, from the law enforcement perspective about blocking entrance to a synagogue?
Sure, 100%. First, a quick note, because it's related to that, and I answered a few questions in the Q&A section as quickly as I could. And I just want to add to the elected officials' voices that it is false, completely false, and completely and patently untrue that any official in or around Los Angeles ordered the LAPD or asked the LAPD to stand down and slow or stop any action on Sunday. That is nonsense. So let's just put that one to bed. Blocking the entrance to any business, in fact, is unlawful in Los Angeles. There is no special municipal code for places of worship, although I would imagine that's one of the things that our partners will be looking at the city council level. And I met with some of our associate district attorneys today to talk about this by phone. Because it is a place of worship, the act of blocking it, to me, feels like we're moving into an area where that specific action could be considered a hate crime. So we're going to look into what might be filing criteria for that. And I know my good friend Jeffrey Abrams, who's on the call, is also starting that conversation with our federal prosecutorial authorities. The fact that a synagogue is treated the same as any other business doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't pass the gut test. And we need to make sure that statutorily it is particularly noted how abhorrent it is to block access to a place of worship. So yes, the officers who are at any large public gathering or demonstration like this, one of the things they're looking for is this a crowd in the middle of an intersection who is just sort of statically screaming and yelling? or are they impacting others' ways of life and others' ability to move freely throughout the city? And blocking the entrance to that synagogue, of course, is the most drastic example of that.
Well, thank you for that comment. I'm going to give a closing summary. I want to thank the elected officials who came today. And I want to thank especially Assemblymember Gabriel for helping to secure those funds for the nonprofit security grant, and Councilmember Yaroslavsky and Blumenfeld, who secured additional funds for immediate security needs. And I want to thank our nonprofit partners who are here, because we're all in this together. The one word of hope I'd like to close on, because it feels very dark. Well, first of all, you'll be receiving a guide in an email either tonight or tomorrow morning, if you've registered for the webinar, that follows up with some of the tips and ideas that were mentioned here. And please use that, share that. It's really meant to just get the word out on how the Jewish community can stay safe. And then just to close, a little word of hope. It's really dark out there. We're in this real dark, fragile moment globally as a Jewish community, but we have this amazing superpower, which is each other. The love that we have for each other that spans both geography and time. And when I hear of how we step up for each other, and how I see that, at least through our federation work, I see it every single day, helping those who need food, helping those who need housing, helping those who need cash assistance. And the fact that there are 5,000 Jewish kids right now in the Southland experiencing the most and greatest summer that they can imagine of rest and recuperation at Jewish summer camp, playing, singing, doing arts and crafts, and living their best Jewish lives. That gives me hope. It gives me a sense of centeredness and groundedness. And I just remember that dark days will pass and the Jewish community will last forever. Thank you again for joining us. Am Yisrael Chai.